A goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
This episode is sponsored by On Point Framing and Memorabilia. On Point Framing and Memorabilia are the preferred framing partner to Huddersfield Town AFC and the proud supplier of authentic signed town memorabilia. They have a great range of items available on the website opframing.co.uk in the HTFC collection tab. Make sure you check them out. Hello and welcome to the Andy Takes That Chance preview show, The Drive-In. It's Matt and Killer here to guide you through all you need to know for the Terriers game at home to Lincoln this coming Saturday. We know all about the Terriers, Killer, but what do you know about Lincoln City?
Very little, Matt. Very little.
I tell you what, I will fill you in, my good man. So Lincoln City were formed through the ashes of a defunct club, Lincoln Rovers, in 1884. Lincoln City started out as an amateur outfit playing out of the John O'Gaunt's ground before turning professional in 1891. They helped form the second division in 1892, and their first ever Football League game was later that year against Sheffield United, which they lost 4-2. Lincoln moved to Sincil Bank in 1895, where they still play to this day, and then they bounced in and out of the Football League due to the re-election process before becoming founder members of the Football League 3rd Division North in 1921. Lincoln spent 9 seasons in the second tier from 1953 to 1961, which is their longest run in that league since before World War I. Graham Taylor is a revered character in Lincoln. Do we not like that? Having taken them from relative obscurity in Division 4 to the title in 1976. However, just 11 years later, they became the first ever Football League side to be relegated to non-league automatically. Lincoln have been relegated to non-league on 5 different occasions, but on the flip side, Lincoln's honours include being 3rd Division North champions in 1932, 1948 and 1952. They were the 4th Division champions in 1976 and 2019, and have won the National League twice in 1988 and 2017, where the Cowley brothers brought them back from the brink. And they also won the EFL Trophy in 2018 and were runners-up in 1983. The club are known as the Imps in homage to the Lincoln Imp, which is a grotesque on a wall inside the Lincoln Cathedral. And the history between Huddersfield Town and Lincoln. So Huddersfield and Lincoln have met each other on 39 occasions, with Huddersfield winning 16, Lincoln 13, and there being 10 draws. The first game between the two sides was in December 1910. The teams drew 2-2. The next season saw both teams get a win over each other, and the majority of the games between the two clubs became sort of in the 50s, 60s, and a little bit into the 70s and 80s. The two clubs have only been in the same division once since 1983, and that was in the very memorable 2003-04 season, where people may remember a contentious goal for Pawel Abbott, which was given onside in a 2-1 win for Huddersfield in February 2004. Lincoln had won at Sincil Bank, though, earlier in the season. However, Town would exact revenge in the playoffs, winning 2-1 at Sincil Bank before coming back from 2-0 down at home to draw 2-2, thanks to a penalty from Danny Schofield and a late strike from Rob Edwards to go through to the final on aggregate. The clubs have only met once since then, and that was in the League Cup in 2019, which saw then owner Phil Hodgkinson pacing up and down the touchline after the game on his phone, causing all sorts of chatter. The pressure cranked up on poor old Jan Sievert as Lincoln won 1-0. Killer, it's a bit of an unusual one. This is a club that we played initially quite a while ago. It's almost like the reverse Wigan, isn't it? Where the first proper games were from the 70s onwards. And then we've played them a lot in the 50s and 60s in the second tier, and then there's been big gaps, and we've not really seen much of our friends from the East since. I mean, we talk about memories, quirky game memories, but I think that 2003-4 season provided 2 home games, didn't it? Which were, I think if you attended them, you wouldn't forget them, would you? Rob Edwards, who was a bit of a cult hero at Huddersfield in the 90s and early noughts, scoring a really good goal with his right foot to put Huddersfield through to the. That was really memorable. But the Pawel Abbott offside goal still rankles Lincoln fans to this day, and it's amazing. But the best thing about that is it was the correct decision, because they changed the offside rule that season into zones. So if you played the ball forward into a zone and you were offside, or in an offside position, you were offside. However, you could stand at the other end of the football pitch, play it into one zone, and then if a defender then played it to you, you were onside. And that's exactly what happened there, where the ball was played forward into a zone where Andy Booth challenged Ben Futcher. And Pawel Abbott was stood in a stupid offside position. But because Ben Futcher headed it back, that zone then became active, but only from Ben Futcher's back header. They really messed with the rules that sort of season, and they scrapped them very quickly after that, thanks to Pawel Abbott's goal. But, mate, good memories there at Lincoln, and it feels strange to have not played him that much.
It does. And Pawel Abbott, though, he obviously got his revenge twice, didn't he, in that season, with his lovely pass back down at Cheltenham later on in the season, meaning we could knock him out in the playoffs as well. What a lovely thing Pawel Abbott did to Lincoln City that year. But I have a memory, Matt, which might not technically qualify for this podcast, but Lincoln have been to Huddersfield before and played Emily, if you remember, in an FA Cup. I think it was a second round game in a replay down at the stadium. And if I remember correctly, it was snowing that day. It was one of the first times I think they'd used a yellow ball. The first time I saw it anyway. I think a fair few thousand went down to watch Emily send Lincoln out on penalties to set up their beautiful day down at Upton Park against West Ham in the third round. So Lincoln have got fantastic history, recent history in Huddersfield, and hopefully it continues this weekend.
Speaking of FA Cup games, going off piste a little bit, but I remember Huddersfield drawing Lincoln United in the FA Cup and winning 7-0 at Leeds Road. That was someday watching Kevin Donovan run riot back in the day. That was fun. Right, mate. So players who've played for both teams include Jaden Brown, Nat Brown, Muzzy Carayol, Delroy Facey, David Graham, James Hand, Richard Logan, Jamie McComb, Junior Mendez, A.D. Moses, Jack Payne, Theo Robinson, who you named your daughter after, Frank Sinclair, Lass Sorensen, Gary Taylor Fletcher, Tyrone Thompson, and of course, Harry Toffolo. Peter Jackson and Danny Cowley managed both sides as well. Killer, tell us about the recent form of Lincoln.
I will do, and I'll quickly throw in there, Matt. After the Cowleys came to town, I think Jamie McComb was a caretaker manager for a few days, maybe just one game after. Which there's another little link there we could obviously throw in. But Tyrone Thompson, every time I hear his name, it just sends me to some sort of shivers, Matt. I've been remembering his performances for us, only rivaled by probably Martin Booty. Anyway. Lincoln, last few seasons, obviously the Cowleys got them kind of going again. They left there in 2019, and at that season, I think Lincoln finished back in League One 16th. And the year following, in 2020-2021, the first season without the Cowleys properly, they managed to finish 5th. Since then, they've obviously become League One stalwarts. They're playing a system that's similar today that we'll get onto in a little bit on the good old tactics board. But they're not really doing too much. They're kind of doing exactly as they should. They get 6,000-7,000 most weeks into the stadium. They're a League One club traditionally when you look at the size, and the positions on the league table over the last few years kind of represent that. But they always seem to start well and then drop off. And this year's been no difference for them. The fixtures at the beginning of the season were pretty soft, but they made the most of it. They were 3rd, 2nd, 4th for 2/3 of what season we've had so far, beating like Burton, Mansfield, Stevenage, beating all those teams, Matt, you'd expect them to beat on paper. And then recently they've come up against Birmingham and were taught a bit of a lesson at home there and lost 3-1. Then they lost to Wycombe Wanderers, obviously, who are now looking like a real force to be reckoned with at the top of the table. Then they lost to Wrexham, and then they lost to Rotherham. There's a real pattern here where the beating teams they should be beating, but then they're struggling against teams that you'd expect them to struggle against. And obviously on paper, we're another team going into Saturday that hopefully they're going to struggle to manage to live with.
Okay, so we have, or I have spoken to a Lincoln City fan. So I spoke to Gaz Hutchinson. You can find Gaz's work on garyhutchinson.co.uk. And he put together this little interview with me about how Lincoln's season is going so far. Hi, Gaz. So you were so close to the top 6 last season. At the start of this season, was the expectation for you to go one better?
Yeah, we were close to the top 6 at the beginning of the season, but I think we had a favourable opening. And on paper, it always looked like we needed to get plenty of points on the board relatively early doors to weather what was going to be quite a tough period, starting at the Birmingham game, which we lost 2-1. So it's not unsurprising where we are now. I think at the back of my mind, I always felt that we were probably going to be around 10th. So for us to be 9th coming into this fixture, hopefully around there going into the new year and still in 2 cup competitions, is probably more or less where I thought we might be.
So you lost a couple of key players from last season, Lasse Sorensen being one. Have you been able to effectively replace them?
Yeah, we did lose 1 or 2. We lost Lucas Jensen. George Wickens has come in. Is he as good as Lucas Jensen? Time will tell. He's had a shaky couple of weeks, but then the defence has been a little bit muddled behind him. You know, we've had to chop and change. We've had some injuries, so that's always going to be difficult. I think regarding Lasse, I would almost argue that we've replaced with better in Tendai Darikwa, in that we needed experience. We needed somebody who had played at the top level to mentor some of the younger players, and Tendai has done that. And also with the injuries that we've had across the back, Tendai's been able to play at right centre-back, just play at centre-back when we've gone in a 4. So I think you could say that it's almost been an upgrade, and I certainly don't mean that offensively to Lasse, that Lasse was very much a right wing back, and that was more or less it. He wasn't a right back, he wasn't a central midfielder. Tendai's been a little bit more experienced. The one player we haven't replaced is Joe Taylor. How do you replace a 10-goal loan striker that would have cost you £1.52 million? You don't. So that's been the only difficulty. Bailey Kadamatri scored 6 goals, he's our leading scorer, but let's not forget that 3 of those goals that he has scored have been in the Mickey Mouse Trophy. So
Ethan Erhahon catches the eye on a weekly basis, and he's been linked to clubs in the Championship. Is he the standout player, or are you guys unearthing more gems like him?
Yeah, obviously Ethan Erhahon, there's loads of talk around him going to the Championship in the summer. There's loads of discussion about what a top player is. We have unearthed some good talent there, but let's not forget we did pay a 6-figure sum for him, whereas with Lasse Sorensen it was a nominal fee. So I think that's what a club like us have got to try and do, is each time we've got to try and go one better. So if we find a player for 50,000 and sell him for 400,000, we're then looking for a player that's slightly better that we can buy at 100,000 and sell at 700,000. So Ethan Erhahon is that next step. He is definitely the jewel in the crown, without a doubt. But there are also players in and around the squad like Jack Moylan, who we think will probably do very well, a young player. And we've got academy players like Sean Rowan coming through. Look, that's the model for us. When you're a Huddersfield Town, with the greatest respect, you expect to buy players when you're in League One that are going to be as good as the rest of the division. Whereas when you're Lincoln City, at that sort of level below, you do have to be a little savvier, so to speak.
How are you likely to line up on the day then? And tell us about Michael Skubala, who seems to be doing a grand job from the outside looking in.
Picking a lineup's not really going to be particularly easy depending on injuries. I would expect us to be playing something like a 3-5-2, so it'll be 3 at the back. You would expect that to be Sean Rowan, Lewis Monsma and Pordy O'Connor given our injuries. Darikwa at right wing back, Rico Hackett likely at left wing back. Ethan Erhahon will be in the hold of midfield. You'll have 2 midfielders ahead of him. It will be any 2 from McGrandles, Hamilton and Moylan. It might be a bit early for Tom Bayliss, who came back in midweek. And then there'll be 2 up top. I would expect the 2 up top to be Ben House and Jovan Makama. But we shall see. There are some players coming back from injury. Tyler Walker played his first minutes in a long while this week, but he's unlikely to start. So yeah, we'll look to go forward quite direct at times. Not unlike Keith Alexander's team of 2003-04, which Huddersfield Town fans might remember, which was our last trip, I believe, to the McAlpine as equals in the playoffs.
Okay, great. And how do you see the game going, and what's your score prediction?
Without being too negative, probably likely to be a Huddersfield Town win. We're on a bad run at the minute, 6 games without a win in the league, just 3 draws in that time. So just 3 points from a potential 18. You know, that's a struggle. It's a tough period that we're going through. So I think it'll be a Huddersfield Town win, and I think it may well be 2-0.
Right, mate. So thanks to Gaz for always helping. Killer, you know what time it is. To the tactics board we go. And right, Killer. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see our lovely little tactics board in front of us. If you're listening, we do our very, very best to describe what's going on screen. So we're recording this on Wednesday evening because I've got to go down south to my work's Christmas do tomorrow. Might be really vain and listen to this back to see how it sounds. I hate the sound of my own voice, Killer, so I can never listen to our pod back. I hate it. But I might give this a whirl because I won't have much choice. So we haven't heard the press conference was the point I was going to, and so we don't know the state of one or two players. So we may have to guess on their availability. So Town, I can't imagine we'll be playing anything less than a 3-5-2 Killer at this stage of the season. I know there is a slight possibility he may go 4-4-2 again, and the reason why Michael Duff's explained why he likes to go 4-4-2 is because he wants someone who's capable of running at the opposition on one of the flanks, and that person is Josh Koroma, and he absolutely tore Lucas Akins apart, didn't he, on Saturday against Mansfield? And the question is, will he do that again? And if he does do it again, it might be an opportunity to throw Josh Koroma at left midfield again and Ollie Turton at right back, where Ollie Turton looks very secure. However, we're looking at sort of a back three Killer. It's going to be interesting because Matty Pearson's back in. Matty Pearson, I thought, was really good against Mansfield. I know distribution-wise, it wasn't a day for distribution, was it? Everyone kicked it up in the air and as far away from goal as possible, and Matty Pearson does that better than anybody, doesn't he? So I think Matty Pearson keeps his place, all being well. Michal Helik, not the best against Bolton the other night, but I think you have to keep Michal Helik in. I mean, him and Pearson are a real set-piece threat, aren't they? And then it comes down to the left centre-back, and maybe Tom Lees is going to find himself a little bit unfortunate and find himself replaced by Nigel Lonwijk. And the reason why I think that might happen is because it gives Duff that flexibility then to maybe go to that 4-4-2 if needs be, because Nigel can step in at left back, and Nigel say Nigel like I know him, Killer, but he can step in at left back, can't he, quite comfortably, or shift to left centre back, which, to be fair to Tom Lee, he does a lot of really good things, but going to left back's probably not one of them. So I would imagine that Nigel Lonwijk, could potentially play left back, which means the right wing back is interesting, because if you're playing Ollie Turton and Josh Ruffles, that's not a 3-5-2, that's a 5-3-2, isn't it? That's going to be an issue for Town. So this is why I'm not sure whether Lasse Sorensen might come in. He looked quite good against Bolton, but he may be a little bit undercooked. It'd be harsh on Turton, who's done well last few games. But in terms of the balance of the team, Sorensen would give us that drive forward, which Josh Ruffles doesn't on the other side, and therefore you've got at least one wing back who's going forward rather than neither. David Kasumu surely has to keep his place. He's been player of the season, hasn't he, so far? He's been outstanding. Herbie Kane was suspended against Bolton, so hopefully he's nice and fresh for the game against Lincoln. And Ben Wiles hopefully comes back into that midfield role. I think that midfield absolutely picks itself at the minute, Killer. I don't think anyone would pick anything different. It's going to be interesting when Evans and Hodge are back. Hopefully Hoggy's not too bad after the injury he got in the warm-up against Bolton. I can't work out if it's the 4th or 5th time that's happened this season. It must be a record. And then we go to the strikers, and that's, as always, where the issues lie, isn't it, Killer? Mm-hmm. I think there's an argument that Duff may go 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1. In terms of strikers, I think you've got to look at Danny Ward and Josh Koroma. I don't think you can pick anything different at this stage. Callum Marshall's got a bruised sternum, I think. So thankfully that's nothing too serious, or hopefully it's not too serious. It doesn't sound it. But best wishes to Callum. Freddie Ladapo and Boyan just are not performing to the levels that we need at the minute. So you can't really throw them in a game where we need to keep winning and keep moving. So for me, it's 3-5-2. And Danny Ward and Josh Koroma are the guys that do it. But it could change in game very much to that 4. So it could change to the back 4. Josh Koroma could go to the left. Josh Ruffles could even go into sort of left back or left centre back, and then Sorensen go into midfield and Pearson at right back. So there's a lot of different things they can do in game to kind of tweak that. And I imagine we might see a couple of different shapes and positions on that one, Killer.
Yeah, I think Lonvik coming back into that centre back three now, that it won't be as windy, and we need a little bit more pace back there because it's going to be more of a regulatory kind of League One football game. Is a must do. Obviously, we don't really want to go too much into last night's game at Bolton because it was a horrific watch. I think it's burnt most of our eyes, those of us that unfortunately had to sit through and watch it. But I thought Brodie Spencer was actually quite poor yesterday, and I think he's kind of played himself out of contention on yesterday's performance, and maybe so was Jacob Chapman as well, quietly on the side, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. I've got a funny feeling, Matt, though, we might end up seeing potentially Turton on the left-hand side if Sorensen comes back in. I don't think Duff's got a fear of changing wing-backs onto the opposing side if he needs to. And looking at the personnel that we have, I think Ruffles is a huge step down, even if Turton does swap onto that side. So I've just not been... I don't think Ruffles gives us anywhere near as much as Turton does. Turton shuts it down. He's so solid defensively. And if you've got Sorensen on one side, Matt, like you say, where Duff likes somebody... He's okay if one person's got pace as a wing-back, because then you can switch in-game to a back four. If you've got Turton on the left and Sorensen on the right and he goes, you can do it that way. I don't think I wouldn't expect Koroma and Sorensen to play as those wing-backs together. I don't think he wants two of them doing that. So therefore, Koroma will be starting up top with the new centre midfielder I've been seeing yesterday, Danny Ward. Can't believe that.
Right,
honestly,
actually, he was picking passes around. I thought he were all right, to be fair, Danny Ward.
He wasn't bad for 20 minutes. Yeah. The first 20 minutes,
right.
He was the most influential player on that field. Yeah. Of course, Danny Ward doesn't have the fitness to play that midfield role. That's not what he does. He's a striker, and he's good at being a striker. But it was interesting to see it because it took a few minutes, didn't it, to adjust that it was Danny Ward playing and not Johnny Ogg, because there was nothing on Sky to suggest that wasn't the case. All the updates from from town on live score suggested it was Johnny Ogg. So it took a good few minutes to work out what was happening. But no, Danny Ward did okay in there for 20 minutes. I just don't want to see it ever again, please. But no, Matt, that midfield's got to go back to Wiles, Kane and Kasumu, because we saw yesterday, if it's not that three, it's still a problem. It's got to be that three. And then you kind of pick your team away out from that. I think it more or less picks itself apart from who plays on that left-hand side, Matt. But for me, I'm looking at Sorensen on the right.
I mean, if Brodie was anything like, I mean, he didn't play well last night, did he? And he's not played well for a couple of weeks. I'm not going to go in too heavy on Brodie. He's a player we both like, isn't he? But and young players do dip in and out of form. It happens. If he was playing anything like last season, then you would have him at left wing back like he plays in Northern Ireland, wouldn't you? And you'd be quite comfortable with that, and like he did at Motherwell. So if Brodie, if he comes back into form, he can fill that void until the January window opens and we go out and get a new left wing back. Touchwood. Jaheim Headley came on and he actually played all right, didn't he, against Bolton? I mean, releasing the ball, everything up to releasing the ball was quite good as it gets with Jaheim. But so maybe he's not quite as done and dusted maybe as what we thought. But I don't think he'll be playing in this game. I think Turton's an interesting one. I think it will either be Ruffles and Sorensen or Koroma and Turton.
Yeah.
But that's how I see it. But with Koroma and Turton may come that system change. Maybe even a 4-2-3-1, because then you get to keep your midfield as it is. Danny Ward can play the solo role and Sorensen just wraps around into midfield to fill, because we don't have that option. But or Ben Wiles again on the right hand side. So yeah, there are options. But let's have a look at Lincoln. So Lincoln's star man is Ethan Errahan. He plays in defensive midfield. He's a player I kind of wanted us to get in the summer. However, David Kasumu's recent form means that we probably don't need that kind of player at the minute. But so the Lincoln team itself, they have so they lost the goalkeeper Jensen, who was a real force last year. He was really good goalkeeper. I think has he gone to Millwall? I think you can tell that I've researched that one very, very clearly. But they've brought in a young goalkeeper called George Wickens, who's currently playing in goal. And as always with young goalkeepers, you do get little dips in and out. They've got a player who will really revere himself to Mr. Richard Kosmala. They've got Paddy O'Connor at centre back, who is both ex Leeds and Bradford. So Cozzy's rageometer will be raising at the game, I think. But he plays centre back and he does a pretty decent job. Right centre back, they've been recently going with Lewis Monsma, a player that I've not seen a lot, but he's a Dutch defender. And if they don't sing "What's That Coming Over the Hill," it's a monster. Then I don't know what they're doing at Lincoln. But the left centre back is the really interesting one. It's a young player called Sean Ruffin, and the reason why it's quite interesting is because he's created from left centre back the most amount of chances in the Lincoln squad, which is really interesting because you would think it would be Tendai, Tariq Tendai. I can't even say his name. I'm tripping over it. But you would think it would be you would come from the wing back, but it's not. Sean Ruffin's created sort of 20 chances, which is phenomenal, really. When you think about it, for a left-sided centre back, he's also one of the highest rated as well when it comes to ratings on. We've been using FotMob recently, and he's making sort of a real sort of nuisance of himself. 20 chances he's created, Sean Ruffin, for a young left-sided centre back. Maybe one to watch. And then in the rest of the team, they've got the two wing backs, like we said. The last time out, Tariq Tendai didn't actually play left wing back. It was against Charlton. It was someone else. So maybe there's an injury there that I'm not entirely aware of. But that recently has been taken by someone called Eric Ring, which is a lovely name for him. So Eric Ring's been playing right wing back, or ring back, if you like, recently. And then on the left hand side, they've had Jamie Moylan, who is again another young player. Another young player that they quite like there. Sorry, Jack Moylan, not Jamie Moylan. So Jack Moylan's another player who's I'm shifting around the stats and stuff on here and misreading stuff. So Moylan, again, that's another player who's creating and getting a lot of shots off as well. So he's interesting. So he could really be a thorn on down that left. So the wing backs himself, if Tendai plays and Moylan, then that could be quite problematic in some ways. So again, we need to be careful of who plays our wing back, because you don't really want Josh Koroma isolated, do you, against an experienced right wing back like Tendai. So that's not really what we want to do. Whereas Josh Ruffles, you would probably be a bit happier. Turton, you'd be a little bit happier. But yeah, so that's interesting. Tendai Deriqua, sorry, I can't call him by his first name. Tendai Deriqua. So he's the right wing back. Moylan, midfield, like I said, Rahan is good. Bayliss is the creative force in there as well. So that's another interesting player that they've got in the middle of the park. Killer, they struggled a little bit. Like Gaz said that you're always going to struggle to replace the goals of a 10-goal lone striker like Joe Taylor. We're hoping to take Joe Taylor in January, I believe, or as the rumours would have you believe, and they've got McGrandles in midfield as well, who's a player we've seen before, and then up front they've got Makama, who's been kind of leading the line, and Ben House until recently as well. So interesting options, and Freddie Draper's there as well, another young 20-year-old striker. Anything there that you see and kind of fear, or are they sort of unknown quantities in some ways?
Yeah, not much. It's a common theme, isn't it, with League One clubs, in that most of them are pretty solid, but when it comes to the strikers, that's kind of where they don't have the money to go out and bring in the reinforcements that they need to push on up the table, and those that do kind of end up there, like Wickham with is it Ricardo Kone up top? They've got he's finding his form. You don't need much to really step up. They've obviously brought in Bailey Cadamarchi on loan, aren't they, late in the window as well, and he's scored a few goals for them, but most of them being in the EFL Trophy, so he's not really found his feet in the league either. They're a strange team, aren't they, where they don't dominate possession, so they like to attack quick. Like you said, the left centre back creates the chances, and he's not a tall left centre back, so it's not like from nodding down from corners, because that would have made sense to me if he was a 2 metre giant and he's heading it down for somebody. But that's not the way he does. He's a ball player who often plays on the left hand side of midfield as well. They're a strange outfit, but they've scored average amount of goals, but they don't have that one striker that's stepping up and really putting them into playoff contention. And whenever they're playing anybody better with a better defence, they struggle. Like in the recent defeat against Rotherham, they lost 2-1, and one of the goals they conceded was from a long throw. The second goal that they conceded was from a corner. Both these things feeding well to us, of course, because we're aerially pretty dominant when it comes to any other team we play in this division. Whereas their goal was a little bit of a filthy, kind of deflected, shouldn't have really scored from it goal, where they've worked hard with pressure, but they don't score anything beautiful. They build pressure and they score a bit like us, but not as dominating in possession, so they don't get quite as many opportunities, Matt, to score the goal. So it's just another team we're going to face where you can see that they're solid, but they don't have that killer instinct. And if Town are just at it, as we can be and as we have been recently, there's really no reason why we can't get the job done on Saturday.
Yeah, I think I would echo that as well. I think there's a decent team here, Lincoln, and you can see why they hover just outside the playoffs. They do have some really good players in there. They've got some exciting young players as well. And they're such a really well-run club as well. It's a nice city as well, Lincoln, if you ever get over there as well. It's a cathedral and everything's really nice as you go down the hill. So Lincoln City are a really interesting team. How the game will go, I mean, Lincoln's possession stats are really low, aren't they? Which indicates that they don't particularly play around a lot at the back, despite having that ball playing centre back, maybe quite direct at times as well, able to mix it. Skubala's quite an interesting head coach as well, isn't he? He had a little run at Leeds, didn't he? Or had a run for 5 minutes at Leeds, but was highly rated there as well. And he's taken the job at Lincoln and he's run with it, and he's doing a good job. I think he's quite highly regarded there as well. So they've definitely got a couple of tricks up their sleeves. Bailey Cadamarteri is a player that I'm really pleased to see doing well, scoring goals, because he's someone that I very briefly coached when he was about 9 years old. So everything that he's achieved in his career is 100% down to me. No, I'm joking. He's a really nice young kid, and he works so hard at everything, and he deserves everything he gets. He's a really good lad. But he's good, and he's fast and he's strong. So they've definitely got options of Lincoln. Ben House is the top scorer, isn't he? He's quite decent. So how do we see it going, Killer? I see Town having spells in the game, not amazing, but just having spells whereby we look threatening enough to maybe do something. How we score is going to be interesting as well, because Ben Wiles is going to be watched by Ethan Rahon. That's going to be tough. Herbie Kane's going to try pull the strings. A lot depends who we play out wide, but I don't think balls into the box is going to necessarily be the route from us from open play. Set pieces could lead into something, and Matty Pearson and Hellick being available is absolute danger to anyone. But I think maybe it's time to feed the ward. Let him know it's Christmas time, like the good old days. So maybe Danny Ward's overdue something, or Josh Karoma, just from around the edge of the box. I'm thinking, like from a breakdown or second phase of a set piece or something. And I think we can maybe hurt them with Hellick and Pearson from set piece delivery as well. But I think it'll be another tight game. I think Lincoln are fairly decent. It could be a banana skin in terms of them beating us, but I do think we've got enough to beat them if we play anything like we can. That's just, which is never a given. But I think if we carry on recent form and hopefully the Bolton game was just a blip. To be honest, I don't think anyone really cares about that Virtu Trophy that much, and hopefully that's the case and we're back to normal service. And if that is the case, then I think we can win this game 2-0, 2-1. But I wouldn't rule Lincoln out from causing us some distress, Mr. Silk.
No, I think they're going to give it a decent goal, Lincoln. I don't think it's going to be like Cardiff or even Wigan, where they're kind of there to restrict us and just kind of see the game out as best they can. Lincoln, I think, will have a bit of a go, and I think we're going to find it a bit tougher. I'm actually interested to see, Matt. We've recently, Duff's deployed a system where we've gone man for man across the entire pitch, which wasn't happening at the beginning of the season, because I think of the defensive frailties we had, the concern was an easy ball and we got caught out. Defensively, we've grown into it this season, and we don't give chances away. We're trusting Hellick to go one-on-one with whoever he's marking. We're trusting Lees and Pearson to do the same. And because of that, it means when we go forward, Wiles is that extra man that's free, because other teams don't like to do that. They like to have a free man at the back. But when it's a 3-5-2 versus a 3-5-2, it's quite hard to do it with the way the centre-backs kind of face up against strikers. So I'm expecting a fluid system from Town. And if Duff does really want to do that, and I know this is technical and not interesting to most people, I get it. But if you can see our centre-backs man-marking their strikers, it means we've got extra men upfield. And I think that's what it'll take, unless we score early doors from a set piece. But I think it's going to take that man-to-man system, Matt, to break Lincoln down, because this isn't a team that's ripe for a beating. That they are going to be solved. And even if we do manage to win this game, it won't be a walkover, I don't think. I think it's going to be a very tough ask. I'm like you, I have it down as a 2-1 with Danny Ward scoring. And I think Herbie Kane will get one as well. I think there'll be a break to the edge of the box and Kane will pop one in. So that's where I'd go, even though they are weak at set pieces. But we scored that many from set pieces. We're due a game off, aren't we, at some point? So I'd be looking at Ward and Kane. But Matt, we need to point out here, we've got 3 in a row so far in the last few games from this.
It's all going to come crashing down, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, we're not.
And when it does, Matt, we won't talk about it. We won't talk about it. We'll pretend we didn't say anything like that. It'll be fine.
No. Anyway, I think that's all we've got time for, isn't it? This week, a very quick one. Make sure if you see this, online anywhere, just give it a quick retweet, follow, etc., and help the pod out and whatnot from there. But Killer, thank you very much, and hopefully it's another one Saturday, and we'll be back with a review show on Monday night as usual. So thank you very much, guys, for listening, and we'll be back later.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.